All right, guys, welcome back to the shack. Sorry I hadn't got the video out sooner, but I've had a little issues with my back and been a little bit immobile for a while. So I'm able to get out here today and try to put this together for you guys. So if you hear me grunting and moaning, I'm still hurting. But I wanted to touch on the Neje 4 Max that I showed you the other day and the Z-axis. Guys, this is probably the most user-friendly Z-axis that does not come with a whole handful of problems that I've come across up to the point that I got this machine. So it's really simple, which makes it easy to use. And I'm going to go over that as well as some of the things that I found about the machine where I think it excels. I even had to do a little tweaking to the machine, and going to kind of go through some of those things. I'm going to demonstrate how easy this Z-axis is to use and operate. So if you're looking for a large workspace machine, this might be something you want to look at. So stick around, we'll be right back. All right, guys, so before we get started, I want to point out to you this air assist module right here and the little holder for it there did not come with the machine. Neje does sell a air assist relay for this machine that you can purchase from them, but I got this one on Amazon for, I think it was $12 or $14, and I'll drop a link down below with the other links. And then I 3D printed myself a little bracket to use the screws that hold the drag chain to give this thing a place to sit. Now, it's kind of got some little clips that would probably hold it in there okay on its own, but it's made out of PLA. It's not real sturdy. So what I did is I went ahead and put me a little zip tie in there just to give it a little added security. But if you need to take it off for maintenance or, you know, repair or whatever, you just clip the zip tie. This snaps out of the little holder, and voila, you've got it off there. So if you do get one of these machines, guys, and you want to get the relay and the file, I'll try to remember to link the file down below as well for the little holder there for the relay. I printed mine out of PLA, but of course you guys that are better at 3D printing than me could print them out of most anything. So, but anyway, the machine works best, guys, like I've said before, on a spoil board. It makes it a little heavier, but it makes it a lot more rigid. And then I've got my spoil board, as you can see, kind of engraved and etched, and you'll see a little more of that in a minute. But it just makes placement a lot better. You can use this with a honeycomb configuration, but for engraving, I just take the honeycomb out of the way and put it to the side. So let's go over some of the things I found about the machine's output. All right, guys, before we get too far in the weeds about the Z-axis, which is really cool, I do want to show you some of the results I've had. I got a little dusty. I've been doing other jobs in here, but I've tested the machine on anodized aluminum as well, and this was just one of my speed tests that I had. And the very, very slowest parts of it, guys, it went a little hot. But there's the, well, if I can get it to show up there, there's the results that I got with the anodized aluminum. You can see the bottom right there, way too hot. But guys, it's got a really clean, shiny finish to it. Not a lot of lines visible. So that's really impressive with this E80 module. I know that this module has a really fine dot size when it comes to engraving, and the last couple of machines that I've had from Neje had that as well. Let me turn off notifications. I keep getting them. So I also did another power test, which I had my LPI a little high, but it gives you an idea as well of how silvery you can get these things. Now all I did was took it off of the laser and hit it with some Windex, wiped it down, and it looked really good. So as far as dot size, doing these anodized cards, guys, can you imagine if you created a jig, how many of those cards you could put in this workspace? That would be a lot. So, and that would definitely do a good job on them. So I've been doing a lot of power and focus testing, as you can see with this machine. I have found that my conclusion is that about 2 millimeters down on this 4.5 millimeter Luon gives me my best cut settings. We're not going to go over all these, guys. I'll spare you. But I did a couple of engraved tests with the machine also. And as you can see, engraving wise, you get a wide range of burn pattern and color Now, I did run air assist with this, and I hadn't sanded it or anything, so it's got a little scorching going on there. But and one of the things that I like about this machine as well, guys, you know I'm doing a lot of these bamboo cutting boards lately, and I was looking at this machine, and you can put, I would say, probably 6 of these bamboo cutting boards in the work area of this thing. So if, you know, being able to set up 6 of them, run them, and walk away is your thing, it wouldn't be that difficult to take and create a little line inside the spoil board here to align these things with, and put 6 of them in there and burn those out, making basically, in essence, making a jig, but using your spoil board to indicate where the laser is going to go. So I wanted to see what it would do on bamboo. And guys, as you can see, I'm getting a good brown color. I did my test grid first, of course. Y'all always asking me how to get the best settings, guys. That's it. You burn it, and then you go through and you pick out the color that you like best, which on this one, I went with the 130 at 100% output, which is that little guy right there. And that's what I set this burn as. So always test, guys, because I mean, I could have went from the black to the nearly invisible, but by doing the test burn, getting the correct settings the first time, in the long run, you're going to save yourself a lot of headache. Use the library and light burn, save that setting as your bamboo setting for engraving, and you're golden. And I mean, I use these boards to test. This is another machine, okay? I keep, if I mess up on one, I keep it for testing. And sometimes you just have to sacrifice one for testing. But it does really good on bamboo. I'm really impressed with that. I do a lot of bamboo cutting boards. The bamboo will have some color differentiation based on the grain. This darker bamboo tends to burn a little different than the lighter bamboo. But it's bamboo, guys. That to me is awesome results for bamboo though. So the next thing that I want to do, because the Z-axis is kind of that's what's really different from this machine, guys. Yes, it has a large work area. Yes, it has the linear rail on the Z-axis. Those are great things, but most of the newer machines are coming out with the linear rails. That's not all that different. The thing that I think sets this machine apart, one is this work area, and 2 is the fact that this Z-axis is awesome. The only downside, if there was one that I could say about this Z-axis, which hasn't been a problem for me, is a lot of people would say, well, there's no knob to adjust the Z-axis on it. But you really don't need it. You don't have to come over here and focus the machine. You have no business even trying to move the Z-axis. It works really well from the computer. So I'm going to move over to Lightburn, show you how it's configured to operate the Z-axis in Lightburn, and then I've got a little test that I'm going to run to kind of demonstrate the process of how the machine works once you've created that file. So let me go over the computer. We're going to show you the setup, show you the test file, and then we're going to run it. All right, guys, so before you can use the Z-axis on this machine, there's a few steps that you're going to have to do. Just make sure once you've got your machine connected, as we showed in the other video, then you're going to want to go in here and edit device settings. The way that I've got mine ran, and you can do this differently, but if you're wanting it to work the way that I've got my Z-axis set up to work, make sure you, first of all, enable the Z-axis here. Then you're going to want to put it on relative Z moves only. And what that does basically is that makes the value that you put in your layer relative to 0. So when it zeros, that number is going to be what it adds to the 0. It just keeps it simple to me. Optimize Z moves. What that does, guys, is the Z-axis only moves when it goes from one setting to the other. If you do not turn that on, what's going to happen is every layer that you cut is going to go all the way up to 0 and then come all the way back down to wherever you set it. So where it could have only traveled 2 or 3 millimeters to go to the next setting, it's going to travel the full length of the Z-axis. It's more of a time saver than anything, but I highly recommend, if you're going to use this machine, to go ahead and turn that on. And you'll see why in the demonstration that we're going to do. When you home the machine here, the machine is going to home both the Z-axis, which what takes it a minute to get moving, and then it's going to home the X and the Y-axis. Now, despite the fact that this machine's origin is technically the front left corner, it homes in the back left, which is cool because that's where I like for the module to go. Gets the gantry out of the way and stays out of my work area. And especially with this huge machine, you've got plenty of room to place materials and work without getting in the way of that module. So the machine is now zeroed. And remember, when this machine zeroes, it zeroes at technically 0, 0, 0. So everything that you design, you're using all three variables for your burn. You will place it in the workspace, and that assigns it an X and a Y axis right out of the gate. So that way you know where in the X and Y axis the object is going to be. However, the Z axis, you have settings in your layers. So you do the Z offset. Now, I've got my machine set up to where at 44 millimeters, it is focused on the surface of my spoil board. So the max travel that this thing will do is 45 millimeters. And the reason I went with 44 millimeters, guys, is just to ensure that I didn't bottom that Z axis out at any point and cause it to start losing steps and be inaccurate. So when I set my machine up, I eyeballed the focus to the spoil board and set it at 44 millimeters. So that's how you go about doing that. You'll just take and loosen the module, set your Z axis to 44 millimeters, and then lower it using the software. Once you get it lowered using the software, then you'll take the module, loosen it, and focus it manually by hand, just watching the spot size, and get that thing as fine as it'll get. And then once you do that, you tighten the screws up, and you never have to touch it again. So that's what I like about the Z axis, and so far it's performed very well. So knowing that 44 millimeters is the surface of my workspace, all I have to do from that point forward is to take, and for you guys that, like to see it visually, you take the 44 millimeters, that is my focus of my spoil board. If I set a piece of plywood on top of that plywood that is 4.5 millimeters thick, that brings my focal point up to 39.5 millimeters. That's the reason this one's at 39.5. 39.5 is the optimal distance for this machine currently with this piece of plywood up there. And you'll see on these layers, I have the Z axis set to different heights, and I've exaggerated them, guys. But the reason I have is because I want to do a video and show you guys what this thing does as it's cutting and how it works. So let me get the other camera set up. Oh, one thing that I do need to show you before we move on is here in console, this is the Z-axis home command. And if you get one of these machines, you can screenshot this. That is the command to home the Z-axis if you ever need to. Once you home the machine and it knows where 0 is, you really don't have to mess with it anymore. That's what I like about this setup. There's not a lot of running the machine out there, hitting the focus button, having to home it twice. There's none of that, guys. Once you home this machine before you start your project, you don't have to touch it. You just, as long as you know the thickness of your material, when you change your material out, you change the level of the Z-axis. But I did create some macros. This is my spoil board focus. That's just going to be Z equals minus 44. That moves it from 0 down to the spoil board if you need to. But there's really no need in this because I just put minus 44 in the layer of the cut, and the machine actually stays at normal height during travel, and it only lowers when it's making a cut. Once the cuts are completed, it raises back up to maximum height and goes back home. This would be really useful, especially if you're doing something that's maybe, kind of like a plate or something that has a kind of a high edges around it, or if you're cutting leather, and you know how leather likes to curl up. This would be really useful for that because the machine would raise itself up out of the way before it went to travel back home, which is pretty handy. So let's get the other camera set up where you can watch this. I hope you got your glasses on. Just joking. You shouldn't need them. Hopefully the blue fire will be lower than the frame of the Neje, but I've got it pulled up. I've got the file here. You can see I've got everything ready. We'll go ahead and frame this out. Just confirm that it's going where I want it. And you'll see that that thing has those two big cooling fans on there. But the machine stays at that height. Like I said, it's framing and that's where it's going to go. The light does come on to show you where it is. Now with this machine, it stays on at a very, very low output all the time, but I've got it set to like 5.5 just to get it to where you can see it with the glasses on, because you really can't see the weak one with the glasses on. So this is how it works, guys. You just hit start and it's going to do the magic, and I'll kind of tell you what it's doing there. So it's going to go to the top where the first line is. I believe this is going to be the text. The text is set at 39.5 millimeter focus. So it's going to run that text real quick. Then once it finishes the layer that is at 39.5 millimeters, it should go to the next layer, which is going to be the green layer here, which is going to be at 30.5. So you're going to see it come up a little bit, or actually it's going to come up a lot. Good 10 millimeters. You should be able to notice it. I wanted to exaggerate it just so you guys could see the machine actually moving. So it's a lot of text. All right, that's the outer part, and I've got mine to start in the middle and work its way out on stuff like that on layers. So it should adjust the Z-axis now and run the next layer. There's your 10 millimeter adjustment up. The next one will adjust up another 10 millimeters. It's going to cut that one. Then it's going to go up another like 5 millimeters. Now it's going to go back home. And that's what's cool about this thing, guys. When it's traveling, it is going to travel at max Z or back at zero, whichever you want to call it. It's going to be the highest it can get off of the workspace. So I think that's pretty cool. And I'll get over there and show you the results. As you can see, this was at 39.5, which is what I picked for my optimal focus. And as you can see, it is definitely in focus there. Then you go up 30.5, 20.5, 15.5, and 39.5. Not only does it have this awesome Z-axis, but now that I've added that module, it has automatic air assist that's controlled by Lightburn. There's no reason to go touch the machine, guys. You don't have to mess with the Z-axis. You don't have to come over and turn air off and on. I mean, Neje, you done good on this one. That's all I can say. I don't have an enclosure for it. As you can see, I'm just letting the smoke fly. That's why we did lines and not engraves. I didn't feel like choking on smoke today. I have concluded that I can fit it in EnclosureZilla, but I'd have to move my other machine out. So I don't know what I'm going to do yet. This guy is, I guess, going to stay on the wall for now, and maybe I can just use it on the porch from time to time when I have those really big jobs. But I've been playing with it. I really like the Z-axis, the way it works. It's serving me pretty good so far. And for the price, guys, it's not a bad machine. You're going to have to go ahead and break down and buy you at least a piece of 1/2-inch MDF. If you're not going to be moving it around, 3/4 would probably be sturdier. But I'm using 1/2-inch MDF, and the machine's rugged. It holds together well. It's not all that heavy if you're having to relocate it and put it up. I did attach the drag chains and all that stuff to it. So that was my update on the Z-axis for the Neje 4 and some more of my thoughts on the machine. This machine does come, and I don't know that I'll ever use it, guys. It does come with the capability of using it as a plotter. It has both knife capability as well as an ink pen. I haven't played with that. That's really not something that I wanted it for. If I want to cut paper, I'll just use a laser. So that's not really, not something I'm going to be using, but if you're one of those folks that's one of the crafts that you're in, that might be something that interests you. So that concludes it, guys. And like I said, I apologize for all of the reviews, but when these companies send me information on these machines, if it's something that gets my attention, just like with the Neje and with the new all-in-one that I've got over here that I'm testing out today, it's hard to turn them down. I want to see the technology. I'm just running out of space, guys. I got to get a bigger building because I don't want to get any of these machines. They all excel at different things. If you have plenty of work area, you do large items, then this machine's for you. I've got other machines that are coming in that are more for reduced work areas and for smaller items. But you know, everybody's always asking me what's the best machine on the market, and the answer is what do you want to do with it and which machine suits you the best. Guys, I don't work for any of these companies. I work for myself. They send me the machines. Sometimes they ask me to point out certain aspects of their machines, but for the most part, I put them in here, see what I think you're gonna like, what you're not, and that's what's in my videos. So I got some more machines that will be coming down the pipe in the next month or so. So stay tuned, you'll be on the lookout for that. But I really wanted to follow up on the Neje because I think a lot of you guys could benefit from the work area and the Z-axis. Guys, I've had 4 or 5 machines that have had automatic Z-axis. This by far is probably the simplest one so far that I have reviewed on the channel. So until next time, hit the subscribe button and stay tuned for further content, and be safe and have a good day.